Hi, I'm Eleanor Meyerhofer, a native Californian designer and digital strategist. In October of 1999, a few years after graduating from design school, I flew from San Francisco to Munich with a fistful of Deutschmarks, a dial-up connection, and an extremely vague plan. 20 plus years later, after a 10-year stint at a global agency, freelancing, and launching 2 online businesses, I'm still here. Now I'm talking to other expat business owners to share knowledge, stories, and inspiration for other non-Germans running businesses in Germany. I am here talking to Erin Wilson today of Third Place Yoga, and I'm going to kick off with the question I ask everybody, which is, where are you from and what is the 2-minute story of how you ended up in Germany?
First off, thank you for having me, Eleanor. 2 minutes. Okay, let's see how that goes. I studied abroad in Italy in college. I loved Europe. I wanted to come back, and I found a program through the US Army doing childcare and simultaneously earning some school credits that brought me back here. And I moved to Garmisch-Partenkirchen, still living there. So my plan originally was to travel around and do the same educational program within childcare in multiple places and go see the world, quote unquote. And I ended up falling in love with Garmisch, and I just never left. I got a part-time job with the Army after a year of my internship, and then started my fitness and personal training and yoga endeavors a couple years into that, and paired that with my part-time work. And so have just slowly been building that up over the last couple years. And no, not couple, a long while, since
Okay.
2000, since 2018. So yeah,
Okay. So what is that? 7 years now.
7 years,
I
more than
want
a couple.
to go back and ask you a little bit about this job with the Army. So did you just go back to the US and, like, I'm not saying anybody, but like getting a job with the Army, what does that look like? And just saying like, "Yeah, I'll just
Yeah,
go wherever you send me," and what kind of
yeah.
qualifications? How did that work?
So qualifications wise, so this is a program that was actually through a university. I think it was University of
Okay.
Iowa. I didn't
Mhm.
go there. That was not my university, but there's a program that they ran, and you could apply. You needed experience in childcare. You had to have some early education, and like if you didn't have the right exact education credits, then you could offset that with experience.
Oh, okay.
And so that was how I did it myself, because I have a degree in animal science. I was
Uh-huh.
planning to be a
Well,
veterinarian, and that
animals, kids.
animal kids,
Save it as the mom.
exactly. Yeah, so that was sort of my intention. It was not a good fit for me in the end, and so I have always done teaching, coaching, tutoring, all of that experience, and so my last year of school, I did a couple education credits, and then I was able to offset that with experience. And so this was a program that placed you on military bases all over the world, because the US has bases in a very high number of countries.
Mhm.
And so they work together with the childcare programs on the base, and they place you in on a semester basis. So you sign up for a semester and you go for that single semester, and you're doing some school credits and you're getting actual experience, and they offset your lodging costs and your travel costs. So they paid for my flight, and we were able to stay on the base in housing
Mhm.
that was provided for us. And then you have a small stipend. You pretty much get paid nothing to work
Mhm.
full time, but you get over here and you
Out
have a lot of
here, yeah.
experience. And I had no idea that even working on a base was a thing, but there's a ton of civilian employees here in Garmisch. We have international school, like military school, that runs seminars and programs and courses. And so you can come, you can work all over the world, which I found to be, in hindsight, like, was like, wish someone had told me that.
Yeah.
As a
Wow.
US citizen, you can apply through USA.gov, I think is the website, for jobs in all kinds of fields, in the kitchen at a restaurant, or in childcare, or at a bank, or at the grocery store. Like there's endless options, which is something I never knew, and is a really wonderful resource. So definitely check that out if you're from the States and looking for a way to utilize very nice, like, kind of safety net and support of having a government job, and still get around and, travel around the world.
Okay, I have, like, even more questions about this. So, okay, since, this is a show for expats and internationals and immigrants, so did they, like, since it's with the military, is, like, all the visa, all the paperwork, all that
Yeah.
like taken care of? Are you like kind of quote unquote working in America,
Yes.
but just
Yes,
in
exactly.
okay.
So
Okay.
basically, when you're on the base, it's sort of American soil. So you get
Yeah.
paid in dollars. You do not have a resident visa. You don't have to apply for that. You don't even register locally. So you don't have to register with the local rat house. You're
Okay.
actually not allowed to because you are under what's called SOFA status. And that is
Okay.
the status of armed forces agreements or something. Did I say
Okay.
that right? Status of forces agreement.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
And it's basically an exception to policy, and it's something that was established after World War II, and there was US troops heavily present in Germany and finding ways for families, people to stay and continue these relationships was kind of the premise there. So I never had a proper visa. Also, that being said, for other immigrants in the country, none of my time that I spent working for the military applies to my years to apply for permanent residency or citizenship. So keep that in
Ah,
mind. So
okay.
I started from 0 when I left the military last February. It's been about a year. I started back from 0. So none of that time counts.
Okay, so that's question. Okay, I have like 2 more questions about this. So, when you left employment with the US military, is it like either you get a job or you have to go back immediately? Like, what did that look like?
Pretty much, yeah. So when you leave your job, you in theory lose your SOFA status
Mhm,
and you need to get a job that will give you a visa. You need
mhm,
to use your 90-day travel visa and then go back,
mhm.
or, figure out an alternative. So those were kind of my options. I knew I wanted to be self-employed. I already had a pretty good foundation there. And I also was planning to get married to my German husband
Ah, okay.
in this year, so in 2025, and so we
Okay.
decided to just push up the paperwork. I could have applied for a self-employment visa just
Mhm,
separately, that's a
mhm,
possibility, but we decided why waste the time? I could get denied in theory.
mhm,
We're like, "Whatever, let's just do the paperwork," and so we decided to go that route personally, and, being self-employed, obviously, I don't have an employer to support me.
mhm.
I'm on that journey myself, but we went the family route, and so I have my visa. My Aufenthaltstitel is through him, and yeah, that's where we are now.
Wait, when you say file the paperwork, like, the paperwork to start getting married or
So you
to
have to submit so to get my family Ausweis, basically, like a
okay.
Familienausweis, you have to submit your marriage certificate and some other documents. So I had to have an A1 language certificate, which I had to go do,
Uh-huh.
in hindsight, because I had never done it when I was finished with my A1 course, and so I went and did that, and then, just general other, like, identification documents, and so we had to
Okay.
present those at our local Landratsamt,
Yeah.
and then they, you know, approve, hopefully, which they
Okay.
did.
Okay. Okay, but you did get married earlier than you
Yes. Yeah,
planned.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
We
so it
got
was
married
okay.
at last February. Yeah.
Okay, okay, okay. Wow, that's super interesting, and so we're recording this on January 29th, 2025. So I know, okay, you don't work at the military anymore, but do you still have connections there? Is like this still a legitimate option? Like, are they gonna shut down stuff? Like, have you heard any chatter or
There's
is it
always
kind of the
chatter.
same? Okay.
Garmisch specifically as a base, the purpose is the Marshall Center, and that's the school I mentioned, the international school. They
Mhm,
have courses, studies, etcetera. There's always chatter about, like, will it continue? Will it stay up? It's a very small installation. There are much larger installations in Northern Germany, and, like, as you pretty much, I mean, we're in the South, so as you pretty
mhm,
much go north, there's much bigger places.
mhm,
And the primary reason that Garmisch is here is because of the Marshall Center. There's also the Edelweiss Lodge and Resort, which is a military hotel that the idea is people come down for weekends away, skiing, holiday. They also do couples retreats and family support events down here. So, there's always a talk of, like, will it last? Will it stay? But I can't imagine that it would just suddenly disappear. So, still a viable option
mhm,
for
mhm,
someone who might be looking to come here. There's not that many job availabilities. That being said, it's a
mhm,
small place, so you kind of have to keep your eyes out, but you can always hop between positions once you're a federal employee. it's possible to move and shift between jobs. And so if you can make it over here with a job, then you might just,
Then you're in the
start looking
system.
around and saying,
Yeah.
okay, I know I want to go to Spain, or I know I want to go to Germany, or I want to go to Italy, and start looking at availabilities and just use that. And some positions, depending on the grade and like the level of job, will pay for you to move from place to place. It depends on where you come from originally and what position you're taking, and like what, if it's full time, what grade it is, etc. Not all positions qualify, but some of them do. So worth
Okay.
looking into.
Okay. So you don't have to be in the military when you're in the US. You can be a
Correct. You
civilian
can
and
be a
apply for these
civilian. Yeah,
jobs.
exactly.
Okay. Okay. And sorry, I didn't get, where are you from in the States again?
I'm from South Carolina
South
originally.
Carolina. Okay.
Yeah.
Our neighbors are from South. A lot of people are like BMW has a factory there or
Yes.
something.
Yeah.
So
A really big
lot
one.
of
It's a big,
South Carolina Munich exchange.
yes, there is.
Wow. Okay. And I've been here over 20 years and that base has been there forever. When back in the olden days when it wasn't so easy, like pre-Amazon, like if you had a friend, I had somebody, a lot of retirees, a lot of people served and then liked it here like you and stayed and retired
Mhm.
in Bavaria or Munich. And they have, I don't know if they still have it, but they had some store on the base where you could get all,
Yes.
they would like, it would be like,
You
"Ooh,
can
get
get
Oprah
American
magazine,
products.
get me some sticky peanut butter," and they'd like bring it from the store, the American store in
Yeah,
Garmisch
exactly.
back in, like I said, the olden days. Okay, so back to you. So tell me about how you left your military position and started third place yoga and how and why and what.
So I always kind of created this foundation in my work. I always worked part time for the military, I never worked full time. And so it gave me another part time availability to do what I wanted, which was trainings and education to teach classes. I started with a lot of fitness classes and yoga. Now I do more heavily yoga, but I still do a lot of private training, which is mostly strength training, cardio training, just generally building fitness and wellness and working on with clients one on one. So I always did that part time and really created this sort of opportunistic situation for myself to be able to do that, because I never would have had the foundation to do that if I had worked full time.
Mhm.
Or maybe I would have, but I don't want to work 68 hours a week. That's not me. Yeah, so I left the position in February of last year and decided that I knew already that I wanted to establish a self-employment business. I decided to name it The Third Place. And that reasoning behind that is that in sociology, there is this phrase of having your home, you have your work, so a place that you hopefully feel comfortable in at home and you don't have to worry about anything else. At work, the place you kind of have to go. And then the third place, which is the concept here, is that it's a place that you can be yourself, you can be accepted, you can have fun, you can socialize maybe, and it's a place that feels inviting. And that's sort of my goal with my business, is to create that space for people. And right now I don't have a brick and mortar studio. Maybe one day, maybe there's a lot of ideas rolling around there, but having that be a space for people to come, that they know they can come to my classes and they can come to my retreats, and that it's a welcoming place. You can be yourself, you can share, you can hopefully have fun, you can socialize, you can take a moment for yourself. And yeah, having that space created, which is where I got the name from. And so that was the premise there. And I established that business in April of last year officially. So it was a big transition period between getting marriage taken, ticked off,
Yeah, yeah.
having process of paperwork and kind of going through all of that. And then being you know, officially in the books as of
So
April last year.
so you were kind of doing this, is it right to say you had it kind of as a side hustle while you were doing your
Yes,
military job? But then how did
exactly.
you did you have the visa at that point and you were able to
Yeah.
do it because okay, so you had it.
Yes.
And then what did it look like going, like how did you build up a clientele? Is your clientele, was it all people from the military base? Was it Germans? Like how did you build the business up to the point where you could?
It took a lot of time.
Okay.
I started with a contract. So I still work on base. I still have a
Okay.
contract on base. I work with children, I teach gymnastics, and I work with adults and I teach yoga classes. So I have two contracts that exist through the base, and I work on the base. I make US dollars, I pay US taxes.
Okay.
I started as kind of a side hustle, like you mentioned. So I was able to have, at some point, I got a mini job in Germany. So you
Mhm.
can only make a certain amount of money per month and it's not taxed. And I was legally allowed to do that alongside my government position, which you are allowed to do, even if you work full time, at least the last I was told.
Mhm.
Which I will say, it is challenging finding concrete answers during this whole process. I have asked 1,000 questions to 1,000 people, and it has been hard because not everyone knows the answer to that question because it's not very common that you have people trying to
Right.
do this.
Like on
So
both the US and the German side?
exactly. Yes, both.
Everybody's like, "Ask the
What?
Germans, ask the
Yes.
Americans, ask the
Yes.
Germans, ask the
And
Americans."
at one point, I switched between this, it's called a GS position and a NAV position, and
Uh-huh.
they basically are just paid with different money.
Uh-huh.
And when you switch between them, it's the same story. You're like,
Yeah.
"Hey, I have a question about the GS side," and they're like, "No, you gotta ask someone else." I'm like, "Hey, I have a question about
Yeah.
the NAV side," and people just don't, they might just don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I started with a mini job and that was kosher. And so I was able to do both of those. I also had my contracts on base, which was also kosher. And so began there. And then when I left the government official position, I still have my contracts on base and I just slowly built up a community. And because the American community that's on base is quite transient, people come and go, every couple of years.
Mhm.
There are some that stick around and there are some that live here permanently, but a lot of people come and go. And so it's just kind of staying consistent with being involved in the community if possible, as much as I can be. I do teach with the kids, so I know the kids and I meet the parents and you know someone who knows someone and so that helps. We have Facebook groups that helps. I
Mhm.
market there, just trying to stay present. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, building that community took a very, very long time. I have taught many classes to no one. Like I've had empty rooms. When I
Mm.
first started, you always ask the community, what time would work the best for you? And then they'll give you feedback and then you're like, okay, I'm gonna do that. And then you do it and then no one comes. And you're like, what
Yeah.
like, so it's just taken a long time. And now my community is probably about half and half with locals versus Americans,
Mhm.
whether they are Americans that have passed through Garmisch and now they're gone, but they still come to retreats,
Mhm.
or they still do classes with me online, or they're just active on my social media page in some way. So it's been really nice to have that possibility to continue the connections. And as people come and go a lot, we have to nurture that. And
Mhm.
it's just taken a lot of dedication and time. So
And good for you. Uh,
thank you.
that's hard. But then how did you, like, build out so, like, do you do classes in German? Like, how did you expand into the local population?
Yeah, so when I got my mini job, I work at a local hotel here, the Aya Hotel. I reached out. They had a position called the Wunscherfüller, and so the person in the hotel, their job is to basically connect with guests and see what people want to do, and they help lead tours. And I
Mhm.
reached out to this person when the hotel first opened, and basically just asked and was
Mhm.
like, "Do you need someone to teach yoga?" I knew they had a fitness studio because I could see it from the street.
Mhm.
And they didn't have anybody because they just were getting started. And I told them, I said, I'm not ready to teach in German yet. I can teach in English because you're a hotel. Hopefully, you have an assortment of guests. It's not just German people, it's not just German speaking people, but
Mhm.
Garmisch is a huge tourist destination. And so I just inquired with them and they said, yeah, that's fine. And I did tell them that my goal is to be able to teach bilingual, which
Mhm.
I officially did that for the first time starting last summer. That
Yay!
was really cool, and I was very proud of myself. And I have a lot of wonderful, kind, patient people who many of which are German and of course speak great English, and
Mhm.
they are super happy to support that and to,
Mhm.
like kind of give me feedback. And so
Mhm.
that was the first time was this last summer. I taught a free class in the core park here in Garmisch outside, and
Mhm.
it's a free class. I was not paid, and I was like, it's kind of like I had no skin in the game really. I was like, this
Mhm.
is a great place to teach a poorly spoken German yoga class because I knew it wasn't going to be perfect, and I kind of would have felt bad if I had taken someone's money and they really had a terrible time.
Yeah.
So that was a good start, and yeah, now I still have that class will continue once it's warm enough, and that's
Mhm.
my German speaking, but other than that, I teach all in English,
Mhm.
and many of the local people who speak either German or another language, they often tell me that they actually enjoy doing yoga in English more than they do especially in German, because the German language doesn't really lend itself to the sort of descriptors that you can utilize in yoga classes to have these
Mhm.
analogies, and it just sounds very different. And
Mhm.
so having that feedback is very encouraging because I know people enjoy class in English,
Mhm.
and many people here speak better, maybe
Yeah.
better English than I do. So,
Yeah.
you know, so that's been great. And there's one other teacher here in Garmisch that is from the UK, and so she also teaches in English as well. But we're the two of us. And so it's a small niche, and I have people that sign up to classes that are visiting Garmisch, and they're excited to find a class in English. So I think it's cool that I can serve that niche. And at first I viewed it as a barrier, 100%.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
it's never going to work. No one's going to
Mhm.
come. And it has proven to be the opposite. So that's been very refreshing.
Cool. And so this Coor Park, I'm assuming this is like some big open space in Garmisch that's
A
public that everybody can use.
medium-sized open space.
Okay, okay,
It's a city park, and unlike like in Munich, the English Garden, you can
yeah,
imagine a very small corner of that,
okay,
and it's much more controlled by the city. So it's maintained really well. There's a fence around it. It has opening and closing hours.
okay,
And this is actually one reason why they only allow free classes and unpaid teachers, because there's
okay.
a legal obligation there that you can't teach classes and get paid for it, just in the nature of what the park is for.
It's a public service
Public
place.
service
Yeah,
space,
yeah.
exactly.
And so now the Core Park, the hotel, do you have other locations where you started? Are there other places you've been able to use to offer courses?
Yes, so this since I've officially been established as a self-employed person, now I can legally rent space. So
Mhm.
I rent a local Pilates studio, and I use the owner's space for class there once a week. And so I pay to rent the space, and then I receive the payments from my students directly, as opposed to having the mini job pay me, so the hotel pays me. I also teach at our Volkshochschule.
Okay.
So I take German classes there as a student, and I
Mhm.
also teach a yoga class there once a week. And that was actually the very first place I ever taught yoga class off the base. So it
Huh.
wasn't my mini job, it was the Volkshochschule, and I started there because they again have a special arrangement with payment and subsidized by the government, and they keep the classes super affordable.
Mhm.
And the payments that you receive up to X a certain level are also tax free, because
Mhm.
you don't really make much money
Yeah.
at all. My German teacher was a teacher his entire life. He taught English as a second language, and now he's teaching German to immigrants. And
Mhm.
he was, informed us many times that, you don't make much money. But
Mhm.
if you love teaching, then
Mhm.
and you wanna continue, it's a really great place to support and
Mhm.
to take classes and participate in. They have language classes, art classes, yoga classes, there's
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was a beautiful platform to start with. I got to know some local people.
Right.
They advertise locally for you, and that really kicked off my connection to the local community. And I taught in English, so
Mhm.
it was a mix of some Americans that had seen the class, some other foreigners, some Germans, and, so it was kind of everybody. And I didn't mind that I wasn't being paid much because I had just started, and I was just happy to have a space to teach in. And to have someone say, yeah, sure, this is allowed, you know,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
little bit of a sticky ground to be employed by the government in the US government and then
Mhm,
also trying to do other things.
mhm,
It's not simple and straightforward. I don't think anything is when you know, leave the country and you're trying to make a life
mhm.
elsewhere.
Yeah, yeah. That's that's interesting what you say about the Volkshochschule because I think, there's obviously a big one here in Munich, and I think it is a great institution, and I have actually considered I think I had way too many plates spinning in the air, but I sort of thought like, "Oh, that could be a cool thing to do," but yeah, and I know other people who have taught there, and I mean, you really can. There's everything from, like, belly dancing lessons
Yes,
to
there's
philosophy
everything.
or whatever. When you taught there, like, what kind of people were coming into your classes?
Everyone. I
Uh,
learned the importance of explaining the title of a class because you
mhm,
really want to, in certain cases, sometimes I call it yoga and I say
mhm,
nothing else. And sometimes
mhm,
that's nice.
mhm,
In this case, because with the Volkshochschule, you sign up for like a whole semester. You have to
mhm,
choose to commit to the class. And I
mhm.
have learned the importance of describing the class with the title, with a description. I had people from I still have people from all ages, all genders, all nationalities coming in.
Okay.
And so the class I teach there is called Dynamic Vinyasa for Strength and Mobility. And so we
Okay.
focus, it's a little bit more of a powerful physical class. I always try to weave in a little bit of foundational philosophy. And then with this specific class, we incorporate a little bit of kind of physiotherapy, Pilates style movements into the practice so that it's a very intentional physical movement class where we are focusing on building the strength you need to do yoga because for many yoga poses you need a lot of strength, you need a
Strength, yeah.
lot of flexibility, but many people don't have those things and the practice itself doesn't really lend to building those things. It's kind
Mhm,
of like a prerequisite you're sort of expected to come with, and it's not a workout, you know. A yoga
mhm.
class is not supposed to be a workout, and so it's sort of like a chicken and an egg situation.
Yeah, yeah.
And so
You
with this class, I tried to be both the chicken and the egg.
okay, okay. That's great. Yeah, just, I still can't do a downward facing dog. You do need to be really have a lot of arm strength to do that pose
You do.
and
Yes.
and flexibility, which, yeah, nah,
Yeah. Most
change.
people don't have enough.
Yes.
And most yoga poses push people's bodies beyond the functional range of motion. And that's
Yeah.
one of my personal interest points is how modern science and anatomy plays into the yoga practice and making it more accessible because we have so much knowledge now of how the body works. We know that bodies are different. We know not just bodies look different, but structurally, bodies are different. Bones are different.
Mm,
Past injuries make a difference. And so looking at it from a more holistic approach of saying, okay, how can I make this practice work for 5 different people that walk into the room and one's
mhm,
got a wrist injury and one can't go on their knees and one person is limited in their hips and
mhm,
you know, you
mhm,
have everything show up in a
mhm,
room. So it's like how can we make it work better and how can we support the practice through other modalities, so not just yoga, but
mhm.
also within the yoga practice, how can we make it more accessible?
Oh, great. Yeah, remedial yoga, that would be the class that I need. Um,
Honestly, that's where most people probably should start. Is like a foundational class. You need that. You need that information.
yeah, except I've been, like, remedial yoga for 30 years, but,
That's okay.
okay, so let's talk about marketing. So, I'll tell you what my assumption would be, and you can tell me if it's right or wrong. So, I would assume that over time, the people that are locals would get to know you, and maybe they know where you teach, or you have some kind of newsletter, or people get on a list. Like, how did you build this base clientele when you do not have your own physical space?
Yeah. Email newsletter. So I don't
Yeah.
even use a newsletter provider at the moment.
Mhm.
I just email people.
Okay.
So
Yeah, great.
I email and I try to do a weekly schedule reminder. I notify people if I'm gone, for example, and I just do a one weekly say, this is what's going on, even if it's like the same thing every week. It's just a good reminder. Here's how to sign up. Come see me. And then social media.
Mhm.
I've only just recently in the last year since I really started my self-employment business is to be trying to be more consistent on Instagram,
Mhm.
and those posts just cross post over to Facebook. And so I've been sort of hit and miss with that in the last years. Yeah, that's really pretty much it. And so since I got my position at the Aya Hotel, which I guess now is probably about 4 years ago, I'm on their website and I ask people often because I'm curious, is like, how did you figure out about this class? They come to
Mhm.
me, they're not a guest of the hotel
Mhm.
and they don't live in Garmisch. It's like, well, how did you find this? And so they're just
Mhm.
like, I just Google yoga Garmisch. And because I'm a part of their
Ah,
website, and
right.
that website existed before my own website
Uh-huh.
existed, that led them to the yoga class at the Aya Hotel. And so that just slowly kind of brought some more folks in. And then they got to know me. And then I try to do my best at the end of class to connect with them and say, if you're interested in other classes that I have or whatever, pop me your email, send me a hello, and I can add you to my list. And with marketing, I have found that's one of the hardest things for me. I don't like doing it really. It's not my
Mhm.
forte. I'm not consistent enough.
Mhm.
But on the other side of that, I see the results of when I am
Mhm.
consistent, and it's a huge difference. It's like I just, I know now, being truly self-employed, like I have to be
You have
consistent.
to. Yeah.
I have to do it.
You have to ask. Okay, let's
Yeah.
talk about the mechanics of this a little bit more. So you're on the hotel website. Is there a backlink to your website on there or just
There's
a little
there's not,
your name?
actually.
Okay.
It just has my name. If somebody wanted to, they could also then just search me because it has my
Okay.
name.
Okay.
And now that I have my own website,
Mhm.
that does pop up more easily when someone's searching, especially if they searched Erin Wilson yoga, they'd probably come across me. I haven't done it myself in a while, so
Okay.
you can let me know.
Also Garmisch. So maybe your site has done well, especially locationally with has piggybacked on
Right, it
the
has piggybacked on
SEO
top of
of
that.
the hotel website. And then when you and then at the Volkshochschule, at the
Mhm.
hotel, at the Pilates studio, are they cool with you mentioning to people you can get a hold of me this way or get and then how do you physically get the emails?
I I need to make new business cards, and since
Mhm.
I have my own domain now, I need
Yeah.
to update that because I haven't done that.
Mhm.
I usually give them my email, and I ask them to
Ah,
reach out to
okay.
me, and I found out the hard way of getting pushed onto people's spam folders that if I blast too many random new emails, it doesn't
Yeah,
Google doesn't like that. And so
yeah.
I have switched to I will provide my email. I'll just write it on a little piece of paper and I'll
Uh-huh.
just pass it out or give them a business card if I have
Yeah.
one and ask them to send me a hello. And
Oh,
that tends to work out better in terms of email successfully arriving to inbox.
yeah.
And yeah, no, the other businesses have never been upset. I mean, they know that I'm
Yeah,
self-employed, they know that I teach in other places, they have no
yeah.
issue with that, and so that's always been supported. The core park specifically, because I'm not getting paid and the people aren't paying, they use that as an opportunity. They say, "Hey, use this as an opportunity to
Yeah, okay.
communicate with people, like, you bring a flyer,
Yeah.
connect with people, and, like, you're not getting paid here, do
Yeah,
something with
yeah,
it."
yeah. So
So
do
that's ve
marketing.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay, that's really actually quite clever to give your email. And then just nitty-gritty question, obviously, when you email so you just, I assume, have some kind of list in your Gmail or whatever, like, of all the people, and then you do a
Yeah.
BCC when I was thinking about doing a lead magnet on this. It's just like you don't even need to, like, get ConvertKit or Mailchimp or whatever. Like, you can start
Yeah.
a list with your regular old email as long as
Yep.
don't share other people's email and you
Yep.
get permission to market to people.
Exactly,
Um,
and because I don't have an unsubscribe button, I try to
yeah,
send out a couple times a year an
yeah.
email that says, "If you don't wanna be a part of this anymore, please let me know, because you can't
Uh-huh.
unsubscribe without telling
Right,
me
right,
in
right,
person, and I don't wanna make anyone feel bad." You
right,
feel a little guilty hitting that
right.
unsubscribe button, but, when I switched to so I actually created a separate named business during COVID. I taught a lot online, as many
Mhm.
people did, and during that time, I created what was called the movement community.
Mhm.
And I created a website through Google and,
Mhm.
used that to the best of my ability to keep classes happening in the online space. And then I created an Instagram based off of that. Like I said, I have a website. And during that time, I tried to use Flowdesk, and I
Mhm.
did. I mean, I switched over and I utilized it. And the very first time I ever tried to send out a message, it went directly to everyone's spam folder.
Oh.
And that was a huge hole to dig myself out of,
Oh,
because
no.
it was like the kind of situation where I had to talk to individual people to say, "Please mark me as not spam, blah, blah, blah." It was a whole thing, and I finally just bailed. I was like, "You know what? This isn't worth it." And I went back to just doing regular emails. I had to dig myself out of people's spam folders.
Mhm.
And since then, I haven't really bothered to try to go back to a marketing email service.
Mhm.
Maybe in the future I will. And I have been informed and I have done some research that when you do make that switch, you need to start small and
Mhm.
start by emailing 5 people personally, contact them separately, say, "Hey, I'm going to email you. Please mark me as not spam. Put me
Mhm.
save my contact, say, like
Mhm.
whatever, star this message, and then do 5 people, and then do 10
Yeah.
people, and then do
Yeah.
20 people, and at some point, maybe I'll switch back, but that's what dug me in the hole the first time, so I'm just happy BCCing and using my plain old
Yeah.
email.
Yeah.
I'm content there for now.
Good for you. Okay, let's talk. You had mentioned teaching to empty rooms and all of this. I want to talk about your retreats. I was poking around on your website. It looks like you do some in some really nice places. And as someone who has like always thought, especially we're on, in front of screens so much, I've attempted a couple of times to try and do like in-person workshops.
Mhm.
And I found it's like, and now I have my own space, so it's not a big deal. But if you have to commission a space, it's like this chicken egg. You got to get the space, book it, pay for it, and then you got to fill it. So what has your experience been running retreats? And has that been
Yeah.
easy, hard?
Um, as I have found as a trend in my life is I sort of dip my toes in as
Mhm.
lightly as possible and slowly build over the year. I'm not much for jumping off of cliffs. And
Mhm.
so, sometimes it's necessary, sometimes it happens when you don't ask for it. But with retreats, I started super small. I knew I wanted to do this is before I was even an established business. I was just pretty much being paid under the table, very small amounts of money. I wasn't too concerned about it. It was all direct local, like people I know personally. And I started by doing it at an event where I did not have to pay in advance for the space. So I just avoided that altogether. And I
Mhm.
said, I did it at a mountain hut in Austria. And with the hut reservations, you don't have to pay in advance. There is a cancellation policy, but it was super duper flexible. I was able to cancel, I think, up to like 2 weeks before the date. And if I canceled, there was no harm and
Mhm.
no fee. And
Mhm.
so that was really how I said, "Okay, I wanna see if I can make this happen. How can I do this with as little, backlash as possible?" And that's what I did is I found a location that I had no skin in the game, and I said, "Okay, I'm gonna book this and let's see what happens." And so then I did that for the first time, I think in 2000 I wanna say 2018 or 19,
Mhm.
and it was it was mostly successful. I had 2 small groups that first summer. I did 2 separate retreats at 2 different huts, and I had to find a space that had a yoga room or a seminar room,
Mhm.
a space that would allow us to do class inside. And yeah, that's how I began. And so then this year I'm teaching I have 4 retreats. The next one is in the beginning of March, so the start on the
Mhm.
13th in Leutasch, Austria, which is just,
Mhm.
45 minutes from Garmisch. And this space and the space for my fall retreat, which is in Portugal, they were both recommended to me by a person I know. And they
Mhm.
said, "Hey, I know about this space and the places." They both have space for yoga. They both want to host retreats like this. That's one of their goals as their business.
Hmm.
And so they're more incentivized to make it work. So what I'm
Mhm.
doing with the place in Loitas and the place in Portugal is that up to a certain date, they will hold the spaces and I don't have to pay a deposit or a down payment. until I have a certain number of registrations. And then by that time,
Mhm.
we both know that, like, okay, it's happening, or it
Uh-huh.
hopefully is gonna happen. And then they still have a time window as a lodging, as a, because it's one of them is like an apartment, like kind of like a fairying house, sort of.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then the other one is a big old, sort of like an old villa.
Mhm.
And then they still have a time window that if I have to bail, that they have time to then fill up the spaces. And so they know on their end what that looks like, how much time they need to fill that space. And I know on my end kind of, yeah, like it's looking like it's not going to happen, or it's looking like it is.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so I've been really lucky in that regard. I have not yet committed to a place that I have to do like a big down payment on.
Mhm.
As of 2025, my first my first venture into that is happening in 2026, where
Mhm.
I'm going to be going to Tuscany,
Oh, wow.
to a beautiful villa down there that also recommended to me by another studio in Munich. I enjoyed a really great training with the studio, and they do an event down there, and so we chatted about it. And that's my first big ticket item, is that I have to put a down payment on this house. And with them specifically, their flexible sort of gift is that if you have to bail and you have to cancel, they will let you move your deposit for a small fee to another date. And so you can say, like,
Okay.
let me try again. And so it's just kind of like picking and choosing that level of commitment that you want to do.
Mhm.
It's like in the
Mhm.
beginning, I had zero chance to even pay for anything. I was like, okay, well,
Mhm.
what can I do around here where I can get away with that
Yeah.
and just
And how
without
did
being
you
crafty?
Okay, with the first one, you said, you kind of friends and family, but then what's been your strategy as you've expanded these offerings? Like,
Do you mean as in terms of people coming to them?
yeah, like getting people to sign up and sign the bottom line and book for the retreat.
Yeah, I mean, I just started with my local community, and then I've posted on Facebook platforms. I've done some like basic advertising through Google, like paid advertising through Google,
Mhm.
and through my own community here. And I actually haven't officially posted the retreats on like a booking platform.
Mhm.
First, because I wasn't officially a business and I didn't feel comfortable advertising for something that wasn't legit above board. I was like, well, I'm starting off really small and niche. I know all these people personally. I
Mhm.
don't want to advertise. But even now that I am, I actually haven't listed it yet on like a retreat booking page, because
Yeah.
I want the spaces to go to people in my community if
Mhm.
possible.
Mhm.
And if I have enough interest, then I don't have to expand too
Yeah.
far beyond that, because it's limited space. I can only have up to about 12 students, and I don't really want more than that, because then I lose that intimacy.
Right.
So, it's just been hope for the best and be consistent.
But tell me a little bit, okay, 2 things, and then we can wrap up slowly. Out of all of those, so the ads, your newsletter, posting on social media, has there been any method that's been like a standout in terms of success?
Yeah, surprisingly, Facebook pages.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I would say at least half the spaces come from my personal my community, my email list, and my
Interesting.
community itself. The other half come from people who know people, so
Uh-huh.
word of mouth
Yeah.
sharing and or Facebook pages. But it's
Like your
tough.
own personal Facebook page or
No,
your third
yes,
place yoga?
yes, that my
Okay.
third place yoga page, I posted on my personal one as well, but also posting about the event in expat pages, in community pages, in Munich pages, Stuttgart pages, Garmisch pages.
I like Facebook groups.
Facebook, yes, sorry, groups, yes,
Okay,
Facebook groups.
okay,
And
yes.
this is difficult because a lot of them have like a no promotions
That was
rule.
my next question,
Mhm.
yeah.
And so what I've done is just, I mean, I've had success doing it, and I've had, people who end up seeing it, sign up, have a great time, and come and enjoy
Yeah.
themselves. It's like I understand why there is a no promotions rule.
Yeah,
And also it's such a great place to reach people. So
yeah.
I kind of have like, I don't know, like a personal sort of like come on, like, really? I can't share this
Yeah.
here?
Yeah.
And so, to be honest, I just post it, and, like, if the admins take it down, it's like, "Meh, okay."
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a sticky ground.
Yeah.
Sometimes I post on, like, yard sale pages or Kleinanzeigen pages and say,
Mhm.
"Okay, I'm selling this event," and I
Mhm.
just try to get away with it and hope for the best, and, like, I've had some good reach with those things. I've had a few, like, random people who I haven't known at all. They haven't
Mhm.
met me, they haven't taken my classes, and they sign up for an event, and so I find that to be awesome, and so that's been a good resource, and at some point, I will be on a booking like, Book Yoga Retreats is a huge website where you can
Oh, I didn't even know
book
there was
yoga
that.
retreats.
I did bookyogaretreats.com.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think there's also one called bookretreats.com, so at
okay.
some point, I'll be using those platforms too to
Yeah.
expand my
I'm
reach,
sure they take a chunk of your
but yeah, they
like,
take
you
a
have
big
to
chunk,
yeah.
and, I love being able to offer my stuff to the people in my direct vicinity. I think it's a nice connection and you have the possibility to come again. Like I've had a, woman in Munich who saw my post on Facebook, came to
Mhm.
my retreat 2 years ago, and then came again last year, so she's like,
Mhm.
we're still connected. She's still in my email group and I don't see her in
Yeah.
between, but
Yeah.
she's
She
close
knows.
enough
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
can, we can stay involved, which I love that. Like I think that's great.
And the Facebook groups, did you kind of focus on a radius like Munich, Bavaria, Augsburg, like the Southern Germany, or did you, like,
Yeah.
go to every expat group?
No, I just stayed. I stopped at Stuttgart because I
Okay.
know there's a big American community there because there's a base there,
Yeah.
and so I posted in the Stuttgart expats, and that's as far as I went. I also went down to Innsbruck, and I posted in Innsbruck. So, I'm trying to keep it fairly close, mostly
Okay.
because those retreats were happening here, like, in Austria.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
don't I've had people fly from the States. I've had former
Oh,
students who
wow.
live in the US fly here to do a European trip and also come to a retreat. So
It also
that's
must
great.
be said, people should go to third place yoga to is it .de or .com?
It's the thirdplaceyoga.com.
Okay, and you'll see all these pictures of, like, the beautiful Alps and yoga poses. So, like, imagine Sound of Music and, like, doing
Yes,
yoga.
yes.
So,
I
I
mean,
can see why people would come to do it.
it's just next level. It's just an
Yeah,
unbelievable place to be practicing and to, I have people ask, "I don't know much about yoga. Can I still come?" It's like, "Yes, of course you can." The retreat is a wonderful place to practice different styles. We do all different types of yoga. So you can see, "Oh, I actually like this style," or, "Oh, I'm not really keen on that style." And to learn and to ask questions, it's holding that space for you to come explore and to try. And
yeah,
what better place to do it than in an immersive, comforting, kind place with all these people who are in the same boat as you.
yeah. And then go have a big schnitzel
Yes.
afterward.
You can have the food is a huge part of
A
it.
giant
I
beer.
Yes, we're big eaters. I strictly don't have a specific rule. Like it's never strictly vegetarian or vegan. I always
Yeah,
have all the options. I never say you can't have a glass of wine. Personally, this is just the
yeah,
way I do
yeah,
my retreats. If it's not for you, that's fine. If
yeah,
it's for you, like I wanna give you the freedom to enjoy yourself the way you want to enjoy yourself, and I think that's really important. And I have all people show up. I have people with
mhm.
dietary restrictions, I have vegans, I have vegetarians, I have meat eaters, and I've got people who want a glass of wine and people who want a hot lemon at the end of the
Okay,
day.
yeah.
So, everyone's on the same page of just kind of being accepting, and I think that's a beautiful thing.
Oh, that's great. Alright, well, on that note, I'll ask you the final question I like to ask people is if do you have any words of wisdom, advice, anything you would have done differently, lessons learned?
Strictly for business or getting myself over to Europe or
Well, ye I guess so, yeah, uniquely as, like, starting a business in Germany as a non-German.
I guess a couple points. Ask as many questions as you want to ask. It might take asking 5 different people, even if they're in the same office. And it just is that way. Like, have patience, keep asking, because someone will be able to help you at some point, and don't take no for an answer.
Mhm.
Don't take no for an answer. Use Facebook groups, they're awesome. There are so many people, like, in self-employment pages or, expats in this city, immigrants in that city, like,
Yeah,
ask
yeah,
I mean, really, that comes down to
yeah,
it. Ask questions, ask people for help, don't be afraid, And here in Germany, I've had to really get over myself about being, like, oh, I can't speak that good of German. Like, my German's subpar. It's like, just try. And
Uh-huh.
most people will speak English, and just call, because I used to be afraid to call anyone at all. Like, I don't
Yeah.
even want to
Yeah.
call the restaurant. And it's just, you got to swallow that pride. I'm a
Mhm.
very competitive person with myself, and I've had a really hard time getting over that language barrier in my work and in my social life and in my family. And it's like, nope, you just got to try. You just got to do it. There's no way but to practice, and that is with most things. That is the
Yeah.
only way to improve, is to keep practicing and to just do it.
And keep that deep L window open.
Exactly.
It's a kind of a game changer.
Install
But
the
yeah,
Deep L extension to your browser.
yeah. Okay. Well, Erin, it's been really great chatting with you. Once again, you wanna tell people what you got coming up and where they can find you?
Absolutely. So yes, you can find me at thethirdplaceyoga.com. My Instagram handle is thethirdplace_yoga fitness. I'm teaching group classes in Garmisch, day retreats, and weekend retreats in Europe. So this year, 3 in Austria and 1 in Portugal. I've got a retreat in March coming up very soon, which I'm super excited about. 2 in the summer scheduled, and in October, I'll be in Redondo, Portugal. So very excited about those things. And you're welcome to come find me online. I have a very small online community, but if you want to come try, I always have a free class for your first time. So feel free to reach out, and you can shoot me an email at Erin@thethirdplaceyoga.com and come give it a try.
All right. Thanks so much for
You
coming
are
on.
welcome. Thank you, Eleanor, for having me today.
Thanks for listening. You can find this and all other Germany Expat Business Show podcasts at thegermanylist.de. Bye.